Okay, boom. And we are live. I want to thank everyone for tuning into a very special edition of Off the Record on the People's Podcast this afternoon. We have a magnificent guest with us today, one who is going to give us some amazing information as well as inspiration, and that is none other than the wonderful farmer Courtney herself. How are you doing? First of all, assalamu alaikum, ma'am.
Walaikum salam, sir.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to come have a conversation with us.
Yes, sir. Thank you for inviting me and breaking the ice. I feel like I've been silent for close to 27 months. I just counted up before I came on here, like, oh. So,
Yes,
yeah.
ma'am. Okay, great. Well, the first question that we want to know is how did the book, your new book that has everybody talking about it, everybody's ready to order it, everybody wants to know, how did your book come about, ma'am?
Allah put it on my heart of, I got quiet because I used to make videos and, and talk. And then suddenly that ability just left me. And I
Mm,
was
mm,
forced to, because that's kind of the easier path. It's just like, hit record, be inspired, but to really deliberate over the order of one's expression and, to put together a more cohesive testimony was what, I was tasked with doing. So uh, that's how it came about. And I always liked the format of how I put it together, which is, quite homemade at this point. Like
mm, mm.
I can make it on my own printer and get it out there. So it was like, speak or write it down and then remove all the obstacles of expression. So yes, sir.
Beautiful. Yes, ma'am. And the title of your book, ma'am?
Title is called The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan and the Other Folds.
Yes, ma'am. And what are the other folds?
Yeah, so it is there's so much propaganda and slander against the Nation of Islam, and it is made to seem as if it is not a universal teaching and message for all of humanity. So I, took inspiration from the pages of the Bible and the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan's words, and it just started working on me of like, because I live in, Green Hills where there literally are sheep. And so I was realizing, wait, I've just been separated. And I tell the story in the book of how like I got a lot of pressure in my life of that I was misinterpreting what my experience was. Like I should just not listen to that shepherd's voice, not all shepherds are good shepherds kind of thing. And I thought, well, no, I think I am following the right voice. And so but I just really never could make sense of why it is that I live in this isolated area, really not near a lot of people. And it's pretty much all Caucasian people around here anyway. And so what's actually going on? And that, that it was God's will for me to have this experience. And so that's what it's in the book of why that is. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Wonderful. Okay, so now, and thank you very much for Alaikum Salam. Sister Naima says Assalamu alaikum. And thank you everyone else who is watching live. We want to go over many of the notes, many of the breakdowns. I don't want to go give away too much because I want everybody to order the book. When will it be available, or is it available? And how can we order it?
Yeah, so it's available now, and the best way to order it is to go to my Instagram, the Farmer Courtney Instagram, and
Okay.
then the link goes right to it. And people can order the physical copy. There's the digital copy also is a little, if just so it's accessible to everyone, whether they have funds or they're in the country, because this pretty much ships in the U.S. I haven't really looked out at all the other, other nations of the earth. And so I have to look more into the shipping and everything. But yeah, so it's available in digital and in print, and that's how you find it. So yes.
Excellent. Yes, ma'am. And I got to put you on the hot seat right now. We want an exclusive because everyone who is watching, we want to very soon. I will be doing in-person interviews with the camera and everything, so we can see. Do you think that we'll ever have the opportunity of being able to see the farmers market and see what you do in person?
Yeah, if that's something you're interested in, yes, sir. Yes.
Absolutely.
I don't live that far from Sister Colette, who does Canning with Colette. I live within
Okay.
a couple hours if you wanted to plan a New York
Yes, ma'am.
New
Yes,
York
ma'am.
trip. So
I want there are people like me who live around a lot of farmland, but who just are novices in farming and just want to, for the people who are watching, what's the basic stuff that we can get from the farmers market? Uh, what are just the basics, and then let everybody who's advanced to advance. But the people's podcast just want to know, get an introduction to what goes on in the farmers market and things of that nature. Who better than
okay.
Courtney?
Yes, sir.
Wonderful. All right. Thank you, everyone who's watching. People are sending the greetings and showing love, peace, prosperity, positivity. Excellent. Thank you all very much. Can't wait to upload this to YouTube. One of the chapter points or the chapters, or the first one, says observing the relentless slander. Can you let us know what that means, man?
Yes, sir. So I had gotten my first job in a mom and pop health food store, and they didn't have children at the time, and they took me in and were really like, so they're always attacking all the things that are good for people.
Oh,
So I was well trained in that from teenagehood of any time there is constant attack of a topic like vaccinations or a person, that it usually I would have the opposite. Like you don't get that kind of mind and manpower towards a continuous campaign unless there's a reason for it. So it had the opposite effect on me. It made me really do a double take and say, okay, there's something that I have no idea about, and it's time to study spirituality. It really wasn't ever something that appealed to me the way it was presented, and so yeah, that was when I first started listening to whatever I could get my hands on as far as physical, because I'm, older. So it's like it was before the internet, really.
mm,
And,
mm.
so anything I could physically get my hands on that was a VHS tape or a CD or cassettes. Like I still have some of those around. And yes, sir. So.
Yes, ma'am. Excellent. And thank you for that. Now, I wanted to ask you, for everyone who was watching, who sees or may be on a spiritual journey, who may not be as open as you were at that point, what advice would you give to people who want to become more spiritual?
Oh, yes, sir. To detox, like fasting was one of my habits as a teenager because that
Mm,
came from the health food store also. And I really do think that had to do with my receptivity. Um, and also that like fasting and not real, expensive detoxes where you have to buy all these pills and powders and all that stuff, but just, real simple foods and eating less and having high quality water, turning off the television, like those are the things, and avoiding intoxicants.
mm,
It's pitched that intoxicants are somehow offering you a leg up on your spiritual journey or helping you, get high, like literally higher, but it's a trick. So I
mm.
would say, yeah, to even the natural stuff, like to leave that alone and to go for fasting instead. Yes, sir.
Okay, great. Yes, ma'am. Wonderful. Excellent. The number two is point is the great poisoning. Can you let us know what that is?
Yeah, that's a term I heard. She's more of a financial whistleblower. This woman, Catherine Austin Fitz. That's actually her language, and I just loved it because I thought, that's a title that really resonated, kind of like the greatest show on earth, kind of thing, like the great poisoning. That literally in the halls of government and in boardrooms and in play like they may not have known the extent due to their ignorance of tinkering with chemicals and, getting excited after the Second World War about different chemicals that they were able to, get conquer with, and so farming, it really did start out with that same war mentality of like, let's just spray and kill the bugs, and so they did transfer chemicals usages from that were left over from the Second World War onto the farming really getting industrialized in the 60s and beyond. However, there's always a scientist somewhere who has a questioning mind, who is bringing alerts to the powers that be. Hey, you might want to do this. And so when you consistently defund people's laboratories and discredit them, you cannot act as if you had nobody alerting you to that. Applying the level of chemicals in agriculture, the level of chemicals in the pharmaceutical industry, and just at scale in the environment, that all the sum total of all these things is what she means by the great poisoning. So it's kind of like in every sector that you look, the people tasked with health and like the well-being of society all turned a blind eye. And so you have this this great coming together where that's the effect on the population. And that's, I think, why Americans are in the particular situation that they're in, because other nations have much stronger laws and rules like against that. And so we did not learn from from those other industrialized nations. And we also, there was a lot of money changing hands, and the tobacco companies bought up the big food companies. When one door closes on their profiteering, they just go into another lane. And now we're looking at pharmaceutical and food fusion, where it's the same company making the pesticides, making the cancer drugs, making all the things. And so that's just what she, like, it's so at scale that that's why the term the great poisoning, I just loved it, because it you don't have to know a lot, but it's at a big scale, and it's not necessarily a good, great, like the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan teaches us. The word great doesn't necessarily mean that it's positive or we're endorsing it. It's just large, large impact. Yes, sir. Sorry, I feel like I was talking a lot there.
No, this is what we enjoy. Okay, and we want to go over many more points in the book, but I wanted to ask you, for those who are attempting to be healthier, can we go get fruit and vegetables from the store, or is should we have to go drive to the farmer's market? What can you do in the meantime until we are able to grow our own food?
Yes, sir. I actually, if anyone is interested, I have a little PDF that I wrote. It's called the Shelf Sleuth, and it's just my top tips for shopping. Like, if you don't live in a place where there's a lot of farmland or a lot of farmers markets, or just how to have options for kind of like good, better, best, along that scale of what do you do. Yes, sir. And so, yeah, the farmers market is an option in my area. We are a hyper local market, so that means that everyone that's there has been vetted to actually be a grower of what they're selling. So you can't wholesale from anyone else and sell there. And so some markets are like that. And then some markets, it's the same stuff that would end up in the grocery store. It's just a smaller business. And, nothing wrong with that hustle if people want to go through that trouble of getting, different corners of places, fresh food, not like whatever we could do. But I would just say to avoid, on top of that, to avoid listening to the popular narratives about fruits and vegetables and the rainbow on your plate and all that kind of stuff, and to focus on the foods highlighted by the most honorable Elijah Muhammad, because science is actually proving some of why he may have been instructed to tell people to eat those foods. not everything in fruits and vegetables is good for us, especially our sensitive organs like our kidneys. And yeah, it's really fascinating what is coming out, just how the intermittent fasting people, how they went, and then now it's even more of, that it's not just the origin and the history of people eating sweet potatoes, for example. Sweet potatoes are also really high in oxalates, which is a plant compound that can be very destructive to the kidneys. Um, there's this book called Toxic Superfoods that when I read it, I thought, wow, this is inadvertently, no connection, but showing and proving why the fruits and vegetables that we were told to eat and how to eat them is really, it's a whole different perspective on it. And I just said, wow, look at a law right now, using all these different sources to support, like if you needed anything else to say, yeah. So that's what I would say. Like, you hit on something I have a lot to say about.
Wonderful. Yes, ma'am. And I want to go back and thank you. I want to go back to the shelf sleuth.
Oh,
How can we get that from you, ma'am?
yeah. So if anyone is interested in that, you could just DM me on Instagram, and I can send it to you. I could send it to you also in case people ask. It was something that I did, and then I just never shared it with anyone. So that happens quite a bit. I'll write things. I'll spend all this time making something, and then I never do anything with it. So yeah, I'd be happy to share it with anybody that wants it. It's just short. I think it might be 12 pages. It's just a PDF,
Oh,
lots of
yes,
links.
absolutely. And we definitely appreciate your work and your diligence in helping to make it practical and available, how to eat to live in our day-to-day lives for people who have an addiction to food, like fast food or just like you said, toxic food. For some people like me, maybe sweet tea or things like this.
Hmm.
Is it ever too late to get started in the journey of going to farmers market and eating healthier? Or, is there ever like an age limit where you should say, all right, well, I didn't eat already enough? Is it ever too late or ever too early?
Oh, no, sir. No, no.
Okay.
It's definitely, there's always time for that. And um sometimes that's kind of why the spirit behind the shelf sleuth is like, if you just do more in your home kitchen, and not even making really extensive things, but just preparing and play. So if you fortify what you have available at home, then those times that you are out, that lessens, and then you just have more that you create yourself, or at least know what's in it, or get someone to make it for you, prepare it for you. Yeah, because the commercialization of food is, that's why right now, because everyone is trying to push certain plant-based things or this or that, and then if you really look into it, sometimes you're not gaining as much as you think you are by jumping on these trends. And so yeah, you could save your money, and figure out a better strategy. So yeah, there's always hope. There's always a way.
Wonderful. So shout out to all those of us who need hope. So what I'm saying, let's start our journey and get started every day. Yes, ma'am. And I just want to read some of the comments. People are showing love all around the world. Thank you all very
Oh,
much
thank
for
you
coming
so
to each
much.
comment. Thank you, Sister Auntie, Sister Hope. Thank you to Brother Musa, Brother Kente, Brother Duke, everyone who continues to show love to the People's Podcast. 1 second, ma'am. I just want to make sure I read. Walaikum Salam, Sister Miriam, family. Walaikum Salam, Brother Audio Nasur out of Baltimore. Thank you very much. Thank you, Sister Miriam. And Sister Naima, thank you for saying facts. Thank you, everyone who was showing love. Okay. Yes, ma'am. My next question for you is number 3. And number 3, of course, is every knock is a boost. Could you explain, ma'am?
Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir. So, like, well, that's a quote, not surprising to your listeners, but of the most honorable Elijah Muhammad, that Yeah, you want me to just tell a little bit about that page and chapter? Okay, so my first exposure to the Nation of Islam and the teachings and ever hearing the name of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad was through a propaganda tape that was put out by this conspiracy theorist, Anthony Hilder. And he had like 80% of his stuff at the time was like bringing up points that were worthy of discussion, or but for some reason, I don't know what the actual backstory is of how he got himself involved in a debate with Dr. Khalid Muhammad, but that was the basis of it.
Hmm.
And so that was a very long debate, but the tape I received from a friend of ours, it was only about an hour and a half. And so it was heavily edited. And it was all the build up that happens in a debate, all the back and forth, all of the, the verbal footnotes, if you will, those were removed. And only the most heated responses of Dr. Khalid Muhammad, the fiery, only that was left.
Hmm.
But as we touched on before, because of what I knew from just the food politics and food industry, I did not dismiss it because I thought, wait a minute, like this is, I don't actually know the full context, but I did know some. My husband had some friends who were 5%ers, and they always treated us with the utmost respect. They would come to the farm, and I just thought, so the way that it's portrayed, as if if you are a student of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, that you have nothing but hellfire for Caucasians. I already knew that wasn't true. I
Yes,
knew
ma'am.
it wasn't true because it was my personal experience. And so I asked him, I said, how come you don't talk to us like this? And why would because I really had no knowledge of history. I think I was 20 years old. Like I had no knowledge of really anything outside of my own experience. And so he said, wait, what's the tape that you saw? And then he said, I have the real debate. I'll give you the whole thing and you watch this and then we'll talk. And that was kind of the stepping off point for me, where I've been talking ever since. So yes, sir.
Wonderful. Shout out to Dr. Khalid Abdul Muhammad. I'm glad that the tape inspired you. That's
Yeah.
beautiful. Yes,
Yes.
ma'am. And thank you, everyone. People are sending comments and fire and go offs to Farmer Courtney and all of that great stuff.
Yes,
And
sir.
may we have your Instagram again, ma'am?
Oh, yes, sir. It's Farmer Courtney. So just Instagram, Farmer Courtney.
Wonderful. Yes, ma'am. Number four is on trust alone. Uh, can you let us know what that entails? It says, upon hearing the teachings of Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, three things became clear.
Oh,
Do you
yes.
want me to read? I can read the three things and then you expound on them?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Then this knowledge spoke to me in a way that nothing else had. That's number one. Number two is study was required. And number three, I trusted him.
Yes, sir. Well, I could take the last one first, pardon
Okay.
me,
Yes,
is just that, at a young age to come into the knowledge of the great poisoning and all of it, like I really didn't trust anybody because I just thought, I would always, or not that I didn't trust anybody, but I didn't have kind of an absolute authority position from anyone in my mind. I just felt like, well, in the end, the certain things always come up to be a little bit dodgy, like it's not necessarily on the level. But when I heard, I had gotten I had an old VHS tape, and so I heard the voice of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and there was just so genuinely, it resonated with me that I thought, okay, I don't actually know much about what he's talking about, really. And especially when I started learning his history, his personal history from birth, and his development as a young man, and then into the leader of the Nation of Islam. It's like I just felt like, okay, this I can stand on this, and I trust this man. So that was different for me. I didn't really have that reaction a lot, and since it was all completely foreign study was required. Like I just, wasn't something that I could kind of fake my way through. Like, oh yeah, I know how to make blueberry muffins. I can just make carrot muffins. It wasn't anything like my regular life where I could just kind of, oh yeah, I'll stretch a little bit and I'll have that skill. It was something totally different. And then the knowledge speaking to me, it just kept building on itself. I would have a thought that would become answered through some material that was provided for me, and then that would build on something else, and I would think, oh wait, so like it just felt like there wasn't a limit that was like, well, we don't know that. It sometimes it would be the person I was speaking to was, I don't actually know the answer to that question, but I'll get back to you, or that type of thing. But it just felt like I could put out a thought and have a thought, and that I would receive back some sort of direction. It might have been a little avenue or like a long high, but there was it was interactive in a way that other knowledge didn't do that with my my mind and experience. So I just kept thinking, okay. And like I had mentioned, a lot of people thought that I was a bit peculiar because they just thought, there obviously isn't anything here for you. I don't know why you're, want to talk about this or why you want to study. It's just not for you. And I thought, no, I do think, it is for me, or why would this be happening? So yeah, I trusted that, the process, that there was a reason for that. So.
Wonderful. Yes, ma'am. This is powerful. And our sister, Farmer Courtney, we have a brief 60-second commercial break for all of the sponsors of the People's Podcast. And we're coming right back to you. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone who's watching. We are grateful for every like, share, subscription, every anonymous Cash App. Thank you all very much. We truly appreciate the support from all around the world. One moment. If you need any of that, Sister Naima, Stay On Point Dance Academy. She teaches ballet virtually to young girls all across the country. Sister Miriam, ABC I Love Me children's book and coloring book. My father's book, A Soldier in the Movement of Christ. My two books, Cleopatra, which is a children's book, and No Father, No Excuse, both of which are available on Amazon. Grateful. Okay, excellent. S Enterprise, Barber and Beauty Products. A plant-based brush wave, meaning you get a plant-based brush for your waves, for everyone with the hair, all the people with longer hair, short hair, get your plant-based brush wave. The website is kosherwave.com, 770-997-6000. That is 770-997-6000. Brother Jeffrey Searcy Muhammad, Stephanie Lasan Muhammad, thank you very much. And right back to our esteemed guest, none other than the wonderful Farmer Courtney, and she has given us great information as well as inspiration. Number 5, we want to deal with the seeds of scriptural reference.
Yes, sir. So yeah, it was a packet of Xerox copied references that showed and proved where you could find reference to Allah God being a man, and in physical form in the Bible, and references in the Quran, and I had never read either one of those books, and so I had never really looked through all of that, and so that was what I was given as a foundation, to look up and study and back up the other materials and knowledge and things. And so that just really solidified my belief, like in combination with what I was hearing verbally being spoken in the different lectures and materials that I would come across, that I just thought, okay, and also just that here was me kind of like a blank slate, and that I didn't have much education in that area, but that I could go from being a totally blank slate and from another fold in a isolated kind of, not like I had to stick with it for it to take root, but that still manifested in me, that that I was able, when people want to talk or have, it's like I wouldn't have all that much to say. I might be able to make some good food or talk about, like, but as far as the teachings go, like, it's not like I would have anything very interesting to say. This is not, so that it showed me the universal nature of it, that like I could go from being really ignorant and blank and having, and also what I didn't have was a negative opinion of scripture and of of just sort of the new age thing of like do whatever you want. Because I live near a college town where the farmers market is that I do. It's a very like make up your own reality kind of thing. Like they don't want to hear anything about about scriptures, about fulfillment, about prophecy, about history. Like no, we just especially, and guidance and do this, leave that alone. They don't want to hear anything about that. So I was also kind of in a hostile environment towards God, like towards the concept of God and accountability. And still those seeds, took root. And yes, sir.
Excellent. All praises so loud. You teach this is the farmer Courtney. Well, let's stay right there. That is not just in your location where you're physically located, but for social media where I attend college, there is a disappointment from many of the younger generations dealing with the misrepresentation of God and religion or spirituality to them. And so that, like you said, there's a hostile viewpoint towards God. What advice would you give to the younger people on getting directly to the source and removing what they may have encountered negatively from someone misrepresenting him, and getting directly to God?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I would say the Final Call radio. Just do an experiment. Do an experiment, because you can turn any space, your car, your room, into the classroom of God. And so here is a curated stream of seeds of those, a little different than my, old scriptural references, but that's the equivalent that you have 24/7 for, the app is there. Just do an experiment and shut out the other stuff as much as possible. Like if you have to be on social for your business or to catch up, you like settle it like 12 minutes, like just check in, get out, and then just immerse yourself in that vibrational frequency and test it. Ask that, that information to then be shown to you in other places. Because that was one of my experiences, was just maybe it was more of a metaphorical proving. It wasn't exactly right. Like I wouldn't encounter people saying the same thing, but I would start seeing the connection of how, oh, this reminds me of that, and this reminds me of of what Minister Farrakhan was teaching on. Like, oh, is that what it means? So yeah, just that's, I would definitely say the Final Call radio is one of the greatest. I mean, just the amount of material that people have access to, and that is sort of just like someone gives you a divine mix. Like you don't have to think about it, because sometimes like YouTube is great, and the NLI archives, an abundance there. But if you're just gonna tap in quickly, I mean, there's nothing better than a curated stream of just right now. It's like getting the freshest at the farmer's market. So it's like, for the time, what's in season right now, what you need has been curated, and just see if it lands. Just receive it. So yes, sir.
Beautiful. Yes, ma'am. Powerful, and you're teaching excellent. Number 6, leave race and religion alone. Could you let us know about that?
Yes, sir. Yeah, so I'm going to go into a little bit more on that. Is going to be a whole zine in itself, because my father was from Rosedale, Queens, And I didn't know until I was about 44 years old of the history of Rosedale, Queens, and how aggressively they kept that neighborhood, all Caucasians. It was mostly Irish, Italian, and some Jewish families, but that was it. And I didn't know anything about that. And my family, my parents, when they had children, they just went further out onto Long Island. Like they did what a lot of people in my dad's generation from that area, they just went east. They just left and tried to distance themselves from the city, and literally never spoke to me about anything having to do with any sort of racial issues in America. And so I lived in a Truman Show like reality. And then that was the time that like the Cosby Show was one of the biggest shows on TV, and you had the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. So I just thought there's also, like rich Black people living great lives. I mean, Bill Cosby was like I was like, I want a dad like that. And like, and so I just thought like, well, what I'm being shown is like, I don't know where anyone lives. And like, I never thought about it. Like, it was just never talked about. I think my parents had hoped that like, that would just be the way, like I would follow kind of the liberal path of like, we're not going to talk about that. We're not really going to confront that. We're just going to go on. And so it wasn't until, almost 2 decades later that I realized why it was such a trigger for my family for me to not only be interested in Islam, and not just like, traditional Islam as they would think of it, where it was like, that would have been really hard anyway. They would have said, what? But that also that I was putting both. I was bringing like the biggest challenge of Islam, and then I was also like, and then there's this whole piece of justice for foundational Black Americans, the history of the world, basically, so yeah, that was very. And so my family doesn't really talk. It's like tight-lipped Irish families. Like they just kind of, put up with you. You have, good energy-ish when you're together. You don't see each other that much, and no one talks about anything important. And so it was like they just kind of, I feel like, made eyes behind my back for like 25 years until I put it together, and I was like, oh, that's why it was such a big deal. But thanks to Instagram, that's how I found that out. Like suddenly footage emerged of the actual time. And that was right when I was conceived, as a child. Yeah, right then. And so my whole growing up, like as a little baby, when I visited there and everything like that was all still going on. And just, blocks from my grandfather's house. And I do feel like, who knows, but I thought, oh, I feel like that had something to do with me. And, everyone has their origin story of how they're called in. And, like the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan teaches that God answers prayers through the wombs of women, and like that part of it. So anyway, I'm going to go into that more in the next, the next zine that I write. But yeah, so that's a little bit about about that.
Yes, ma'am. Wonderful. Okay. Thank you very much for being so transparent and open. Many of us are, deal with, like you said, religion and politics and how they can be conflicting and within our immediate dynamic of our families, because yours is Irish, that concept, mine, fundamental, foundational Black American. And there are people in my family who they look at my viewpoints and they be like, whoa. Whether they're Muslim, Christian, whatever, they just like, Josh is, so everybody, I understand, with our viewpoints. My political views, they definitely don't understand, but it's all good.
Yes.
I wanted to ask you, I don't hear an accent. You said like you don't say "ka" and things like that, like you're from Boston or something. Is that just a Boston Irish thing, or is that how most Irish people speak, even if they're?
I do think I was actually just asking we were talking about where does where does the Boston accent come from? But no, Long Island is where, yeah, Queens is pretty much, no one can ever tell what my whole grandfather's history and everything is like but I think they had been here for like, as soon as they could get out of Ireland, they got out. So they were here for a long time. And then everyone forgot the history because nobody wrote it down. Um, but yeah, no, Long Island, I don't have a Long Island accent. I can do it if I'm like, fooling around, but no, I don't have one.
Yes, ma'am. Wonderful. And earlier you said that when you finish writing that part of the script, if you will, would you ever want to turn your movie, I mean, your life into a movie or a TV series? Is that something that you would like to see happen?
Well, not so much me necessarily, like, but yeah, I know what you mean. That you can really teach with like a fictional narrative, and yeah, like I have thought of just because that and edutainment, entertainment, kind of like blurring those. Yeah, I had thought of that, and just in general, yeah, like narrative script, even if it goes in a different direction. But yeah, I have had insights of different things that I would want to do. Yes, sir. Sounds like you're going in that direction. You're
Absolutely,
seeing it.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
absolutely. That's one of my main passions in life
Oh, okay.
is writing, theater, acting, and film. So
Oh, okay, okay. Yes, sir.
yeah. I see how it taught me. Like even when you were speaking about Long Island, but then when you said Irish, I was like, no, I've seen so many movies about that. So because of film, I feel like I know a little bit about the Irish culture. I feel like I've seen Gangs in New York. I've seen
I know they're crazy.
yeah,
They're like,
yeah. No, but I'm just saying, it's like I learned a lot. The main guy from 30 Rock, Alec Baldwin, he's Irish Catholic in on a television show called 30 Rock, and he was speaking about how a lot of the Irish people don't believe in divorce, and there's a lot of children, and it's like So I learned through TV. I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. All right, I got it. So yeah.
yes, sir. I'm actually an only child. So
Mm,
yeah,
mm.
my parents were like, we're done with that. And on purpose, I was the only child.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's beautiful. Okay. Number 7. And first of all, I want to read some of the comments. People will continue to show you love. Shout out to our YouTube family as well, because they're going to have so many once we upload it to YouTube. Beautiful. Brother Audio on the Source says the most unique interview I've seen on the People's Podcast and very interesting and inspiring. Thanks, sis. He's thanking you. Thank you, Brother Audio on the Source, for always showing love. And can't wait to upload this to YouTube. Number 7, the dreadful day of the Lord.
Mm. Let me look at that page. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
To stay on topic, I already feel like. Um, oh yeah, so that's a good riff on our discussion about film, right? Because yeah, the horror films of of like the 80s and
Yes, sir.
90s was the first place I ever heard the name Malachi, because like told you I wasn't
Mm,
in the scriptures. And so yeah, that was the first place. So it was when I heard in the when I read in the scriptural references about the great and dreadful day of the Lord and Elijah, and I thought, oh, okay, so I was able to really clean away a lot of the rubbish from Hollywood and the distractions, and I had a vivid place to put that knowledge top of mind, that I thought, okay, so for me that was always very palpable, and I know that it has been said that about that Caucasians are more motivated by fear, and like you can get
mm,
them like, oh my goodness, but that really has always been palpable to me, especially because of my food, like the food and farming, like the warnings of famine being used as a like just how dreadful those days are going to be. And so that really did always motivate me, that I thought, okay, so here's something that isn't fiction, that's actually real, that we can have conversations about and make an impact in people's lives by sharing these teachings. And so that was very motivating to me, because like I said, I trusted that this was a true teaching that was coming into fulfillment. And so that, you know, is very, very terrifying. And that was even before, that was what was happening on the earthly plane, really was very, you know, frightful to me, especially as a mother with like young children that, you know, look at you 3 times a day, like, what are we eating? You know, that, and that's really everyday stuff. And then when I just kept raising it up, you know, more, I mean, we watch the weather a lot because of, you know, when do we need to harvest this or can we plant that? But and just how quickly, you know, things can get lost. Like everything can look wonderful in your field. You could be like almost tasting it, and then a hailstorm comes and that's gone in 5 minutes. 6 months worth of growth. Like your beans are not being harvested, your squash plants are dead, like you're not, you know, your spinach is all beat up and garbage, like it's compost. So yeah, that was a very that has always been something, the, you know, the day of judgment, that's not just, you know, the book of Revelations, it's not just some fictional thing or something that doesn't apply to us anymore, something that we just sort of talk about and maybe make movies, you know, apocalyptic movies, but no, that, yeah, that's for real. So
Excellent. Yes, ma'am. Now, for those of us who are like me, who are big into poultry, let's say turkey, don't be stereotypical, but perhaps chicken and things of this nature, who don't want it, who hear farming and hear, you know, fruits, vegetables, beets, and stuff like that, you know, all of that good stuff. But what do you do deal with the poultry side of it? Do you cut the
I
chicken?
I
Turkey?
have in the past, yes, sir. I
Okay.
have in the past dealt with egg layers on a really small scale, and
Okay.
I would like to return to that. I would say if you were going to get into that, to start small, and you want to have really good housing for them. Brother Patrick Muhammad of the Your Faith Farms, is that what it is? Your, did I get that right?
Okay.
Your
Yes,
Faith
ma'am.
Farms. Yes, sir. So he shares a lot of really good knowledge. I was just telling my daughters that about just how full on he went into, you know, really creating secure infrastructure for animals and just how impressed I was by that. He recently shared a chicken tractor that's really affordable from Tractor Supply, and that thing is like the Mercedes of chicken tractors, but doesn't have a Mercedes price tag. And so I would say housing is really going to be your main thing because everybody likes to eat chicken. So raccoons, yeah, people. So that's going to be the thing. And they're a little bit messy too. They're a little messy.
Okay, okay. Once again, this is why I got to come. I got to visit because just the farming life. I've been to farms with the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan and seen look at you know the land and I'm like this is beautiful for you know if that's what you're into. But I'm just telling you, all of the I'll just rather pay you pay the people at the farmers market to do it. I go to work and because man the actual
Yes, sir.
of it, you
Yeah,
know, it's just not for everybody. So I'm just like, I don't know, you know what I'm saying? But I see
I
the
think,
benefit of it. Yeah, I see the benefit.
yeah. No, for sure. I think the number is like 1% of people in America are farmers. So it
Mm,
definitely, I mean, we could use to increase that a little bit, but all farmers always need support. So yeah, they're, you know, you don't have to completely give it all up. But I've also seen some really sweet, you know, sound studios and stuff out on farms. So sometimes you just have to figure out like what, you know, you could just grow blueberries or, you know, and then
mm,
still have
mm.
your whole like production studio and not, you don't have to do it all. Yes, sir.
Excellent. Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much. We just have a few more questions for our esteemed guest. Number 8, amongst the left, like quote left, end quote.
Yes, sir. Yeah, so that's a little bit about, you know, this really liberal college town area that I live near, like in the shadow of Cornell University. And that was one of the things that drew me to the area, aside from the cheap land prices and like the good soil, was that you as a non-student, you can go to the libraries they have but you can't leave with anything, but you could go and read. And so when we first moved here, I would go to the Africana Center, and they had all the books of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad on the shelf. And so for me, that was a real, treat and a draw anytime I could get away, which wasn't really that often, but just to be able to have that resource was a real draw to me. But I had a lot of trouble sharing the teachings and trying to have conversations with people, because they're like, yeah, we're here for the healthy food and we'll hang out but like, where are you going with these other conversations? So I was not good at, fishing. I was not good at like sharing milk with anybody. I just was like, and here, like, let's watch this documentary. Let's do this. Let's do that. So I had to, yeah, come into maturity. But basically, what I mean by that is that, yeah, I was left to my own devices as a child of the 80s, of like, oh, just get raised by Hollywood narratives and TV and whatever the book publishers say, whatever public school teaches you, like, you'll just figure it out, because they wanted to leave religion alone. They wanted to leave, anything that was unsavory, uncomfortable, that just wasn't everyone going forward together and having a progressive society. Like that was just the thing. And that you weren't a kind person if you were to bring these things up, like that, making people uncomfortable or this, that, or the other. And so, yeah, I was left in that sense. And so then politically, I was, anything that the status quo for, a good person that would, want a progressive society, I was like, oh, sure. I didn't really question anything that much. I thought like, oh, someone surely had like thought about this. It took a little while for the great poisoning thing to catch up with the political, and then that's when I just said, wait a minute, like all of this is a dead end as well. This is actually a trick. Like, no matter how much you dress it up, or if you follow it to its natural conclusion, you're still getting to a rotten root. And that, I think that people get kind of caught up in that, because what I always say to my daughters is like, when you're vetting conspiracy theories or conspiracy realities or studying history, if you do it without God in the picture, it's a hellscape, and you just feel like there's no hope. We're never, just like start digging the graves now, because they make it so hopeless, because their knowledge is expired. And so then it's like, when you go down those rabbit holes, it's like, if God is not in the picture. And that is what solidified me more in standing on, on the teachings and on my relationship to studying them from afar, because I was just, like, there is a word out there where we don't have to feel like we should just go, either be like part of the complete wiping out of any morality, in our trying to do good, right? Like, because if there is no standard, then anything goes all the time. Like, if you have this insane logic where like you're just allowed to kind of push any agenda or any thought forward, and then bully everyone into going along with it, and you can't hold the line anywhere at any point, that is just crazy. It's like absolute insanity. And so I think a lot of people are kind of having an awakening on that scale somewhere, but they don't have they don't even know that the teachings exist, thanks to the Relentless Slander. And so that's kind of part of why I was like, okay, just write it down. So yeah. Yes, sir.
Excellent. Yes, ma'am. And the name of your book again, ma'am?
Oh, yes. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan and the Other Folds. I changed it a couple times, and that's why I was
Listen,
exactly.
yes, ma'am. We are super excited. Everybody, make sure we go out and support our sister, Farmer Courtney. Just have a few more questions for you, and people will continue to bear witness and saying, that's right, preach. I wanted to ask you about juice, right? Like, so lemonade, and this is the stuff that I like to drink, is right. can I get that like from the farmer's side of it that still tastes good, where it's not like a sacrifice of taste in order to be healthy? Is there something that is there? Does all my juice does it have to taste like Gatorade in order to be healthy? Like let me know.
Oh, no, sir. No, sir. Yeah, yeah. Lemonade is actually one of the easier things, like as if you want to make that yourself. Or are you saying you don't want to make it yourself? You just want to get it from a better source?
I just want to get it. I just want to go get it, but I want it to taste where it's like, oh, this is not a health juice. It's just like, oh, it's good and it's healthy. But let's start with the good
Okay.
first. Let's start with the good first, though.
Okay, yes, sir. Well, as far as like if you go into the really expensive, organic juice section, I am like floored. I know everyone's dealing with inflation, but the juice section is where you really see it. I
Mm.
didn't think I'd see like a $9 bottle of, pineapple juice like ever. I never really thought about that. But lemon juice, just like pure organic lemon juice, is one of the more affordable one. So you could get yourself some good like clover honey from the farmer's market, for example, and just put lemon juice and water, shake that up, and you could have, you can add like a pinch of sea salt to it if you want it to be a little more hydrating. So that's one that we use all the time. That's one of my cheat when people say get some juice. I'm like, oh my goodness, we're just gonna make some lemonade. You could add some fresh squeezed lemons in there if you want to stretch it, a little bit, because depending on, are you still in the South? Is that where you are?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, so you probably have access to, much better like quality citrus and things than I do. But yes, sir. Yeah, you can find. But yeah, maybe I was gonna say like you could do a taste, you could try a couple different recipes, do like a taste test, maybe get your nieces to do it, like maybe get the children involved, get your niece and nephew, make them, yeah, have it be like a taste test and come up with a recipe, and then you always have that to make that, yeah, because that's something we typically, because we live so far from stores and stuff. I mean, 20 miles, but it seems far. Like if you have anything comes up or whatever. So that's like one of our, when the cupboards are pretty empty and the fridge is pretty empty, you can usually make lemonade. So yes, sir.
Okay, great. Yes, ma'am. And my sisters are watching. They said they're definitely going to do that. We're going to post it on the People's Podcast with the pictures of an upcoming event that we're going to in the farm this month, where they do the hay rides and
Uh,
they have the apple cider and all of that. So they convinced me. They're like, Josh, because I'm very suburban when it comes to stuff like I don't want to go. And they're like, Josh, with the nieces and nephews, you gotta come and taste apple cider. I'm like, apple cider, man. So now I'm gonna let them know, and they're of course they're watching, but I want to
yes, sir.
we'll add that as well, and everybody stay tuned for the pictures. We'll post the pictures as well from the hay rides and things of that nature. Show up. Okay, yes, ma'am. So now I want to go to number 9. Anything but Islam.
Yes, sir. Yes. So again, I know I keep bringing up the movies and stuff, but so Back to the Future was like one of the bigger, the big movies when I was a kid.
Absolutely.
And so that, yeah, that is pretty much like the image that they wanted us to have of Islam, and then it just kept going, right? So, and also with when have communities that then like isolate themselves. So like it's also just that my parents had no contact with any Muslims, or maybe here or there like occasionally, but by and large, like people live separately and differently, and so it was just like that they just didn't know what to do, because there really isn't any arguing with a Muslim. It's like, it's not like, oh, just have a little bit of wine, or like just have some bacon, or like it's okay, like you can eat this on, just don't eat it on Fridays or whatever. Like
Yes, ma'am.
there's a lot of workarounds, but it's like I was already just so like diligent and disciplined with my food choices. That was, to have a teenager fasting in a culture where people don't fast unless they're like sick or dying. It was like that was already really kind of jarring to them. So they didn't know what to do about my interest in Islam and studying it. And then also just that I also didn't agree with most of the Muslims that I would meet. Not that I didn't I didn't make a point of that. I didn't agree. I would share, kind of innocently or ignorantly of like, oh, and yeah, like I'd meet them at the farmer's market, them going to Cornell, or the families move here. And then everything was, very jovial until I mentioned, like, oh, and I studied from the Nation of Islam. And they'd be like, no, 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 you should leave that alone, or you should study real Islam. And I'd be like, but none of you even ever came to me, you know what I mean? So it was like, I don't have any contact with any other Muslims. Like, no one else is putting out materials, like even trying to reach me or whatever. So it's, how can you have me, like a prerequisite that I have to leave the actual people who have been teaching me, whether ever had contact with many people. This was like before social media, really, but just like that spirit of pushing and communication being out there in the airways and the frequency, that it's like, how is that a good way to start a relationship? And so my like, I don't know if my family would have been more happy with that, or I don't know what. It just is like, but yeah, anything but that, like I could have come up with any of the different lifestyle ideas and things that are all popular and being pushed. That would have probably been embraced easier.
Mm.
Or, it just, anything that where there's a core of principles and discipline is kind of like rejected. Because then it isn't just all, oh, love and light and peace. And they would have much preferred me to be more of like just a Bob Marley listener, One
Mm.
Love and all of that, like,
Yes, ma'am.
like nothing too serious. I always bothered people because I'm not fun really at all. And I mean, I find fun in what I find it enjoyable. I find enjoyment in what I do, but I'm not known as like the fun person. People, when they invite me to a party, it's usually around food, or like, okay, well, we can count on her to like bring the food. But other than that, I'm not the DJ. I'm not the fun person. I'm not like planning any of the things. I'm just like in the corner cooking, So,
D-
yes, sir.
so you're saying DJ Farmer Courtney's not on the ones and twos? You're not mixing it up?
No, 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 not really.
Yes, ma'am. What are some of the meals that you enjoy making that other people enjoy your food?
Yeah, well, what I enjoy making and what, my family like today I made this was like a special meal because I feel like we've been really working hard all season getting everything. So I had gotten a piece of like a leg of lamb from the farmer's market, and so I
Yeah.
made that for my daughters, because yeah, young women, when they're going into menarche, like having that iron, that's part, especially just like what the food choices are and everything that we have today, the different stresses. um, I actually used to be like a really strict vegan when I first came across the teachings, and so that really resonated with me. The fasting, but I asked the question almost unknowingly, like, why is meat still in there? And then I had a whole journey, like a health journey of my family, of different deficiencies or different things that came up from those errors in what I chose to eat early on. So now that I have, you have second chances if you have a larger family. So with my last set of teenage daughters, so anyway, that's the reason for making such a hearty meal. It's a real treat. We don't get it very often. But anyway, so yeah, we have the small potatoes, red potatoes from our land, and carrots and onions and garlic and leg of lamb. So they love that. That's like their favorite meal. Um, and yeah, I'm also known for like healthier pizza, like handmade pizza. That's like one of
Okay,
the things
okay,
that I'm coming from Long Island. There's like a pizza joint on every every
okay.
every block at least, and really good pizza too. It's not just like some poorly made. So there's that. Yeah, I liked, I bake. I made bread and carrot cake this week. This week was a big week in the kitchen. I feel like I had been so in the writing mode that people were kind of missing me in the kitchen. And of course I do make, navy bean soup. And
Okay, okay.
nowadays I'm like the person that's eating it. But if I don't make anything else, I basically have to. That's why our cupboards run low, and there's nothing but ingredients around, because then it's like I can get everyone to eat bowls of that and then get on to the other foods. But yeah, it waxes and wanes. When it's cold out, people always eat the soup. And then, and yes, sir. So yeah, because it's a food I definitely enjoy. I get
Wonderful.
teased for it a lot. I have so many navy beans around. Everyone's always like, you and your navy beans. But yes, sir. Yeah.
Excellent. And also salute to your family. First of all, thank you for your great representation and all of the sacrifices you made in life to stand on truth, stand on business. But salute to your family as well. Let them know that we acknowledge them and we are grateful for them, and we're sending positive energy and peace and love to your family as well. I wanted to ask you about type of crust of pizza. So my sister's always laughing at me because I go to all the different pizza places because I'm from Naperville, Illinois, which is outside of Chicago, an hour outside of Chicago. And we grew up with like deep dish pizza or thick crust. I'm not a thin crust kind of person. And in the South and Lamb Stomach, everybody's like thin, 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 thin. I'm like, nah, let me leave. Let me go here. Let me go here. So, what type of crust on the pizzas are you able to make? Is it only thin? Can you make thick crust? What type of crust?
Yes, sir. When I went to Chicago for the first time, I said, I can't believe that I didn't even like get any pizza because I don't know what deep dish pizza tastes like. So sometimes it accidentally happens, when you make homemade dough and then you go through the learning process. Like sometimes it can be, but I don't think I'm not sure if it's the same kind of thing that you're used to.
Okay.
But I do like, yeah, a thin to medium thin crust is nice. Just because, yeah, that's but, and then the pie, like the pizza, the deep dish, I should look it up. But so it's like loaded with like cheese and ingredients and stuff too, or it's a
The,
different experience, right?
it depends. It depends. Some people like cheese. Some
Okay.
people like myself. I'm not. I don't want a whole bunch of cheese. Don't. I'm getting the cheese on the pizza. I like the bread, sauce, chicken. Put the green peppers and all that on there. Boom, boom. My mother, she used to be like, "I got you, Josh." You know what I'm saying? Because she knew exactly.
Okay.
Because I don't want to be that person going to Pizza Hut, Domino's, and all these places, being like, "Okay, so know this, add this a little bit." So when you said you made it at home, I was like, okay, I got it. Yeah, I like people who can make it. So it just makes it easier than people being behind you in the line. Like, come on, come on.
Yes, yes, sir. And pizza dough, like in the production of running it, like it really keeps, it holds over, it
Mm.
actually gets better. So if you made the dough once a week and then cut it up and had it, you could make it fresh and then cook it when you need it, and it really holds. I actually have a pizza book I started. Now it's like true confessions of the writer who doesn't actually publish things.
Uh,
I
uh.
have a pizza book like three-quarters of the way written for the last decade that I haven't published.
But we look forward to reading it when it comes out. Now,
Yes.
is there something specific with the oven? Does it have to be a certain type of oven? Can you make it in any oven, or because like because you on a farm, it's like a farm oven? Like help me understand for somebody who's not in the kitchen at all.
Yeah, any way you can, really. Like anything you can use. I know people who, yeah, make it on a grill or make it. So really, I would just say don't necessarily strike out or like set out to make pizza if you don't know the oven. So like know whatever it is that you are using, know how it's fussy, or like does it burn if you put it to the left, if you overload it, that kind of thing. But then yeah, just experiment, test the limits of whatever you do have that you cook with. I don't think you need a special oven. Um, Pans would be more important, like if you had to invest in something, I would say try your best with whatever you have, and then actually what the pizza's cooking on would be your best investment,
Mm.
to explore that, because yeah, how it conducts heat is how it's gonna, that makes a bigger difference, I think. So yes, sir.
Wonderful. Yes, ma'am. All right, number 10, it is the high cost of self-doubt.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So right before I was, yeah, in prayer, right before I logged in here, I was thinking, wow, I got shut down. I like, it didn't lose my voice, but it was just like, yeah, I really stopped talking for 27 months. And that was a reflection point of just that, like, it's really been me in the way all the time. Like I could have made so many different decisions at different points, but it was just, yeah, it was me doubting myself of feeling like, okay, I believe in the wisdom of Allah. I believe in everyone else. Like, yeah, sure, that's all locked in. But then it was like when it was me and my little piece that I had to do, I'd be like, oh, am I good enough to do that? Can I do that? And I just caused a lot of problems of, wow, a lot of errors that I don't know, I don't know what timetable I necessarily would have been on, but I definitely delayed my self-improvement by locking into that holding pattern. And then just all that, the effects of not taking action when you know that you should be doing something, or not asking the question, not asking, you're not, and then you're not receiving, and you're just kind of stuck in a place. So yeah, kind of like a spiritual stroke, actually. I felt like when I really reflected on it, I thought, okay, and it was compounded by like the people around me didn't really realize that that was the thing that was holding me in place. And so yeah, it was just a combination of it's one of those things that like only Allah knows like exactly what I mean, right? But it's like it was really high cost. And so yeah, to just save just to put that out there, to save other people, to get I was tuning into just the little clips that you were posting about, about mental health and
Oh, okay, yes, ma'am.
wellness and stuff like that. That is just such rich material, because you lose like time, and then when you lose time you lose confidence, and then
Mhm.
you lose your way, and whatever gift or communication you're supposed to bring to the world, like there's a cost to that, because the time is upon us with everything, the weather accelerating and everything going on. So yeah, just trust that that you're supposed to do what you're prompted to do, and don't doubt. Don't doubt so long, or so yes sir.
Beautiful. Yes, ma'am. And Sister Farmer Courtney, we support you and send positive love and energy to you. I was like, maybe she got off social media, maybe she blocked me, maybe I was posting
No,
too many things
no
wanted
sir,
to like wanted
yeah.
me stuff. Because I was like, you used to post so much. So I was letting you know that we definitely paid attention to your absence and just wanted to make sure that you were good. So when I saw you pop out with the book, I was like, oh, there she is. Let's go.
I have been attending school. I actually, I thought, oh, I'll enroll in homeopathy school. I'm good at using this form of alternative medicine with my own family, and
Mm.
that has been a humbling, because it's been so, that's been a real shaking of my like, not even so much my confidence. It was also an adjustment of that I really like hard physical labor. Like that is good for me, to like, so to go from a life of a lot of, whether it's kitchen or farming or whatever, then to more time sitting in a chair staring at a computer. I feel like I underestimated how much that was going to affect me. And I didn't necessarily compensate with an accelerated physical after. I just didn't do the math on that correctly. So I feel like that affected me. And then Instagram, they're such punks. It's like then they don't show anything. You either have to be on it all the time or paying the money, and then they wouldn't. So the few times that I would put something out, nobody would see it anyway. And I just thought, okay, I guess I'm just gonna, lean into the quiet time. And so yeah, I'll be back.
Wonderful. Yes, ma'am. Two more questions for our sister, Farmer Courtney, and people continue to show love. People are sending positive energy. Thank you very much to Sister Naima. Thank you very much, Sister Miriam. Thank you, brother. Thank you, everyone. But shout out to our YouTube family as well. We can't wait to upload it to YouTube. I wanted to ask you about Elijah Explained.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah, that title came to me when I was actually when I was down in Georgia, and I met Brother Ben X for the first time. I thought I received that title. Like that could be a whole book, but then I was a little bit wavering of because people always just want to know, like, why do you study the most honorable Elijah? Like, why do you read these books? Like my mother especially was, I left a book out one night early on, and she gets up really early and she read it and she just thought, how can you read material like this? And I just always looked at it like I don't take prescriptions that aren't for me necessarily either. Like if you need, so I was always able to um the tractor is just going by. I don't know if you hear that loud sound. I was always able to read from the lines that were written how I was supposed to receive it.
Mm.
And so I've always felt a debt of that I had an ability to defend and to say no. Like if you're a Caucasian reading these lines, and this might be the first time that you've ever read, the devil, the white man, and all of that type of language, like that is not an excuse for discounting the entire body of work and the entire message, because you don't just swear off medicine because you don't need some big strong drug to save your life in that time. So like you might not need that depth of of message in that way. That does not mean that it is not right and shouldn't be in existence. And so I always just I guess I had never heard the term apologetics because, like I said, I would like all things scripture and even within the Christianity and stuff. Because Catholicism, now that I've been around other Christians, it's like a whole nother thing. I was like, oh wait, like there's a lot more. Yeah, I don't know, just joy or like activity and stuff, whereas Catholicism is just like it's this special kind of trance like control of people's minds in this way, where I feel like a lot of mainstream Christianity, like people get to bring their own flavor to it and make it a little bit more inviting. But Catholicism, it's like you're just born into it. Like I don't think it attracts people. I don't think they're growing necessarily. Maybe not in America, at least. And so when I heard the term apologetics, I literally pulled my car over to the side of the road because I heard this apologetic. Where we live, I would, I'd be able to listen to National Public Radio. Like, but that was, I used to, back when it was a lot more of reporting back in the day. And then the reception would fade out and I could only get the Christian channel and the Catholic station, and the Christian one was a little more enjoyable. So I heard this apologetic and I literally pulled over because I thought I'm going to forget that. And I wrote down an apologetic. And so I felt like how God has like given me sight into things is that the skill base that was being built in me was to be a Caucasian apologetic for the Nation of Islam. And then I was like, that is like, no one even knows what that is. But like that is what I feel was planted in me. So the desire, for Elijah explained, and I was really like, I felt I hesitant to just write it like that. Usually I say his whole title and name, but I felt like I prayed on it for a while and I thought like, okay, it's still really strong, so I'll just go with Elijah explained. So double meaning that he explained myself to me, my world to me, everything in creation to me, and put me on a course, and then in turn kind of like what was reciprocated and what would be due was that I would do the same. And so that's where it comes from. So.
Wonderful. Yes, ma'am. Once again, the name of your book and how can we get it?
Okay. Yes, sir. So The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan and the Other Folds is the name of it. And just go to Farmer Courtney, the Instagram for Farmer Courtney, and it's linked in my bio. And yeah, so working on getting my website back up, but it's not yet. So the Instagram is the best way to get to anything I have going on.
Wonderful. Yes, ma'am. And it makes it very accessible and easy for us to do business. That's the way of 2024. Instagram is, it is what it is. I wanted to ask you, first of all, thank you again. Thank your family for allowing you this time with us and to share you with the world and social media and people's podcasts. But I wanted to ask you I I wrote this down. Here we go. You said a tractor drove past. The farming life, is it very safe and peaceful for you? Is that one of the reasons that people don't just have tractors driving by? Is that one of the reasons that you chose to live where you live?
Oh, yes, sir. And tractor, I should have said it in quotes. So it's a riding mower with
Okay.
like a bucket attached to it, like so
Okay.
like a tiny little trailer. So yeah, it is peaceful where we live because we don't live in there's a lot of different agricultural landscapes. So we basically have a residential home far from people that then we've made fields that are fertile by tilling the land and declaring like this will be a farm, but it wasn't it wasn't a farm necessarily beforehand. So yeah, it is very peaceful. And but I don't think I would do we spent a long time looking for the place because I don't think I would do well near like a larger, where there's lots of tractors and things, and because farming can be quite dangerous, on a large scale. My daughters take archery lessons, and their archery teacher is actually missing some fingers, and he grew up on a dairy farm, and it was from a farming accident when he was 8. So like it can be really intense. So
Yes, ma'am.
yes.
Now, with your daughters learning archery, I took archery in high school, of course,
Oh,
and
okay.
uh, do they like the Hunger Games? Is that something that helped inspire them to watch, like with the archery?
No,
Hunger
it
Games is great.
comes well because they're young.
Okay.
They don't know about that story yet. They don't know
Oh, okay,
about
I'm
that.
about to say, yeah,
And
Katniss with the Hunger Games. You know what I'm saying, with the archery, and archery
yeah,
is
I think it comes from like C.S. Lewis's The Chronicles of Narnia.
okay. Okay, I know about the Chronicles of Narnia.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, Lucy with her bow. So I think that's where it comes from, and just like all the old stories, and people hunted and had had bow and arrow, and so and what's fascinating is that they're twins, and the archery teacher, so they shoot at like the same moment and hit the target at the same time, and one time they split an arrow and hit the target and got a bullseye at the same time and like split arrow. So Allah was really, it was like it was such a surprise, and it has been just a blessing and a joy to have twin daughters. So because it's so fascinating. But the archery lessons really took up that like exposure to how deep that goes to the next level.
Beautiful. Yes, ma'am. Last question for you. Thank you, everyone who's watching. Some people saying excellent teaching, powerful. We appreciate each and every one of you all. Thank you all very much. I wanted to ask you, ma'am, about what do you do for comedy to like, comic relief? Do you watch sitcoms? Do you watch there specific comedy you watch? You listen to the radio? Like, what do you do to help make you laugh?
Oh goodness. I have one really close sister that I'll call and we'll
Okay.
just, talk and stuff. But yeah, I guess that's something I need to work on more is that I'm not really that I don't watch that. I mean, I feel like it just got the marketplace got a little bit slim. I feel like you used to be able to watch comedy and it was, there was a certain line and that has all been crossed and it's all gone. So if you have any recommendations, you can let me know.
Well,
But
my mother was big in the '80s stuff. So like when you said Back to the Future, I think I know every word to Back to the Future just because my mom was playing so much that
okay.
I basically thought I was Marty McFly. So but if there's certain things, '90s, well, I'm big into action, but '90s action movies, crime TV shows, something like that. But comedy, most of my favorite sitcoms are '90s sitcoms, but that's Friends, Everybody Loves Raymond, um,
Okay.
Frasier, Seinfeld, King of Queens. So I'm pretty much like that. I like The Office now, but before that,
Okay.
most of my sitcoms is '90s and '80s. Back to the Future. That's what you said. That made me laugh. So I was like, yeah, there was definitely propaganda, but I was like, yeah, '80s sitcom. I mean, '80s comedy coming to America. So
Yeah, no, yeah, okay, I see what you're saying. Yeah, no, I just have been I've been so immersed in learning homeopathy that yeah, like I haven't and And then yeah, just everybody's kind of seen all those movies, and so we don't really have movie night and stuff anymore. But yes, sir. Yeah, I mean, I do have some down moment, like downtime, and then, like we'll check out different things. But yes, sir. Yeah, can work on that.
Wonderful. Well, I want to thank you very much. And if you ever have any new recommendations, by all means, let me know for some funny stuff to watch. I'm always enjoying. Life is serious enough. I need a break sometime.
Yes,
Uh,
sir.
yes, ma'am. And man, this has been great. This has been powerful. Thank you very much for giving us some amazing information as well as inspiration. Let's make sure we all go to Farmer Courtney's Instagram and order her book. We have nothing but love and positive energy for you. Man, can't wait to upload this to YouTube. This is Joshua Leonard Muhammad signing off of the People's Podcast. Assalamu alaikum, man.
Walaikum salam.
Thank you all. Thank you all very much for watching.